First off, I'm reviewing this match as part of 2023's edition of Secret Santo, a collaboration between some of my fellow wrestling sickos and I, this year including Blair of Pro Wrestling Outsider, Joseph Montecillo, Andos, Chris O'Brien, and finally, the individual who nominated this match to me, Cherry Chase. Everybody should watch and support those other creators on their Secret Santo videos, as well as anything else they do. They're lovely people. Now that my bases are covered, let's talk about some GOAT shit. Kana, otherwise known as Asuka in WWE, for my money, is the greatest female wrestler of all time, and a top 20 wrestler overall at that. Her run in the Fed has been good to great, and much like Bryan Danielson before her, she successfully navigated a career transition from the indies to the biggest promotion on the fucking planet. One thing in her WWE run she's devoid of, however, is the visceral violence she had on the indies. She's violent, yes, but some people who are less familiar with her work pre-WWE may be surprised to learn that Kana was a straight killer, throwing shoot headbutts, submission attempts, and pure hatred in her strikes. She was Joshi's undisputed queen of combat in an era where Joshi had already started to crystallize into a more commercial and clean-cut product. Kana actually recently stirred up controversy among Joshi fanatics by claiming that Stardom was, quote, created to destroy her, but there's a kernel of truth there. Kana historically has had beef with Nanae Takahashi, a founder of the promotion who disapproved of Kana's dangerous style filled with shoot headbutts and hard-hitting strikes. Of course, the internet sickos like me love that shit, but it's ultimately up to you what to think. I think the brand of Joshi Kana espoused was much better than the clean-cut idol wrestling of mainstream Joshi today, which I actually wrote an article about that I'll link in the description. To quote Jade Cargill, Meiko Satomura is that bitch in all senses of the word. Satomura dates back to the lineage of Gaia Japan, being trained by the legendary Chigusa Nagayo, one half of the tremendously popular Crush Gals. She's perhaps best known today for her NXT run, in addition to training some of the greatest stars of modern Joshi, those being the likes of Chihiro Hashimoto and Kagetsu. Finally, she also won the Red Belt in Stardom back in 2015, so it's safe to say she's an incredibly experienced veteran. While perhaps not quite to the same degree, Meiko reciprocates the lust for violence that Kana has in her work, with crisp strikes, a few decent throws, and some great-looking grappling deriving from shoot experience in judo. She's hailed as the final boss of Joshi Pro-Res, and in a series of self-promoted shows in the early 2010s, Kana took this boss on to prove who the top woman in the world was. On February 25th, 2014, in the main event of Kana Pro Mania in Kurikan Hall, these women went to war.
Yeah! Yeah!
Killing beats.
Sugar track. Don't worry about it, bitch, you never been in your place. Always moving silence, never question your fate. Always checking on your niggas, gotta make sure they straight. If I'm getting money, then you know we all gotta play. Since a baby in a tummy, mama knew I was great. They can play me like a dummy, they know what not to take. Fuck these niggas, cause the money, only thing I'ma chase. Time is precious, that's the only thing I try not to waste. She hate cause I'm up and you can tell on the face. I've been eating so much, I've been saying my grace. When the times was rough, I would look up and pray. Thank God I ain't have to smack a bitch today. Fucking God, smack a bitch today. Thank God I ain't have to smack a bitch today.
The first immediately striking thing about this match is the presentation. The lighting choice is more striking than any kick somebody can throw. The entirety of the match is lit via blacklight, and also throughout the entirety of the match, there's just a guy sitting next to the ring playing a Japanese stringed instrument I'm not really sure the name of. The way he never really plays a full song, merely chords in there, remind me of what little I've seen of kabuki theater performances. The notes that he plays striking certain emotional beats throughout the performance. This theatricality extends to the entrance, as although Meiko's wasn't included in the video that's on Kana's YouTube channel, Kana makes a momentous entrance with the same musician mentioned previously playing her to the ring. She's clad in her usual splendor, with face paint and a mask that makes her almost look demonic in her presentation, not unlike the clown-esque style she likes to wear today. The match begins with some of the most fundamentally sound and realistic grappling I've seen in a long while, with Kana shooting a single leg takedown, getting it stopped by a front headlock by Meiko before circling to the back. Kana mat returns Meiko and starts to work for what looks like a Darce choke or Anaconda choke, but ultimately gets reversed. Meiko exits the clinch with a killer European uppercut, and it's then that bombs truly start to be thrown. What begins as a great story, mostly centered around the idea that Kana is probably a better grappler and thus wants to clinch and grapple, while Meiko wants to turn it into a war of attrition via killer punches and kicks. Meiko stuns her and takes the back, but Kana reverses it with a double wrist lock Sakuraba style, which is objectively God's favorite grappling hold. One PK and armbar attempt later, Kana finds herself working from underneath, but time and time again, when Meiko tries to trade holds, she ends up on the losing end. A failed seatbelt sweep leads to Kana almost sinking in a knee bar, which forces Meiko to stand up and attempt her own submission in order to create a stalemate and escape. What proceeds from here is several sequences I'll abbreviate since it would get rather repetitive, but all centrally involve Meiko battering Kana around the ring before being taken down, with Kana favoring the low single, often used by elite fighters like Triple C Henry Cejudo. As the match goes on, there's more and more sadism displayed by Satomura. Continually, she revels in the pain of Kana, taunting her in the crowd after a near knockout blow and screaming at her throughout. This choice establishes her as the clear heel in the dynamic, something not quite yet clear in the early going. It almost reminds me of the face-heel dynamics you see in Mexico, where the heroic técnico is almost always characterized as more skilled than the rudo, who has to resort to cheating and brutish violence to get the upper hand. Meiko isn't cheating, but her strategy of swanging and banging is definitely less articulate than the prodigious grappling of Kana. About halfway through, the bombs truly start to fly, as Kana uses mean German suplexes and ground strikes to punish her foe, while Meiko employs some tricky flying strikes and a DDT to even the score. Increasingly desperate, Satomura takes to the top rope, but gets nothing but knees upon landing, almost immediately getting put into a deep armbar. She attempts to use brute force to escape, but Kana maintains back control and jumps into the backpack position, trying to choke out Meiko for what seems like an eternity before the older veteran has to go to the ropes, which is sort of an admission of defeat within this match. A spinning kick from Kana that misses lands her in deep waters as well, almost getting finished with a standing choke. What this match weaves throughout is a great sense of karma, not unlike the first FTR vs Young Bucks match, where whenever one of the two women try to stick it to their adversary with their own opposing skill set, they get punished. Karma also plays into the finish, as Meiko takes too long attempting her Death Valley driver by stopping to showboat. Kana slips out and locks up the armbar, and as Meiko tries to build a base and wrestle out of it, Kana switches to a triangle choke, adjusting it by pulling in her head in an incredibly realistic manner, which finally finishes Meiko for good. The ref has to break the hold by force, and finally Kana gets up to celebrate, prevailing in front of the crowd and being hailed as hero. While this match isn't my favorite by either woman, or even my favorite match between these two, the unique atmosphere created by the presentation is incredibly fun to watch as these two women beat the fuck out of each other. For the most part, it's an incredibly realistic match in the grappling department at least, as Kana wears her shooter influence by her trainer Yuki Ishikawa on her sleeve, and Meiko tries her best to decapitate her. What's most important to me, beyond the action itself, is what it represents. An alternative style to mainstream Joshi of today, really only seen in indie promotions like Sendai Girls, where Satomura trained wrestlers like Chihiro Hashimoto, and now they reign supreme. I find the current state of idol wrestling largely unsatisfying, as it mimics the worst parts of the New Japan main event style, and is slightly demeaning to me seeing them wear the frilly idol outfits. Sure, the Crush Gals did something kinda similar, but the women's wrestling of the 90s was dominated by big bruisers like Aja Kong or Bull Nakano, who I think would have trouble fitting into mainstream Joshi if they emerged today. Hard-hitting matches like this are truly technical, brutal showcases and exactly what the craft can be instead of flashy, weightless work rate spectacles. Kana and Meiko are absolute legends, and anytime they faced each other, it produced something memorable. I give this one 4.25 stars and would highly recommend watching it. It's completely free to view on Kana's YouTube channel, so I will link it in the description. Thanks again to Cherry for recommending the match. It was a pleasure. Next time I see y'all will likely be the best of 2023 video coming out sometime in January. So until then, rock on my fellow freaks. Subscribe to stay updated, and throw shoot headbutts at your friends as a show of friendship.